Okay, hopefully you've already installed longform plugin and you want to create multiple different projects. As you can see on the left, on my longform file explorer, you see there's two projects. One houses all my prototypes and one houses a longer running project. And so we're going to create a new folder and call it my example. And this is going to be one of your example other projects. You create a new node inside it, and that acts as your index node or your bootstrap starter node. It just controls everything, and your project will take the name of your node. I'm gonna call it my example project, even though I usually name it after the folder name to be consistent. But to illustrate that it differentiates, I'm gonna call it that. And so the next thing you do is you open up Command Palette, which is Command P on the Mac or Control P on the Windows side. And when you type in longform, all the commands for longform show up, right? And next time you can just do insert multi and you can get it, but this time we're just gonna insert multi-scene front matter, right? Okay, so once we have that, right, that's not the only thing that we do. We have to jump to the project. So we jump to the project. I already know it's called jump, so jump, and then my example project, and then we go to that specific project in the file. So you can see that there's no scenes, right? And like if you write scenes here, it won't go anywhere, right? It will go into the root folder. What we want to do is we want to put it into scenes, right? You kind of sort of want to do it like that, but it won't create a folder for you called scenes. So what you should do is you should manually put in scenes, right? And then you go back to your longform project, right? And then you do scenes. You click on it, right? You kind of wait a little bit because it's kind of finicky. You gotta wait for it to kind of register, right? And then you go to scenes. There's two ways to add a scene. I'm gonna do it this way first, so you see it. Add one, and you go to here, and you can see it's in scenes. That's our scene one. Scene one, in which I showcase a long form, right? Once that's done, right, you go back to your project, right? Make sure the scenes is okay. You do preview mode to see if your CSS shows. I have custom CSS for long form. That turns it white. That makes sure that it actually registers it. And then we go back, and you can see that scenes has a scene one folder. You can also write a new note here and do scene two, which is the second way to do it, which is my preferred way. Then you go back to the long form thing, scenes, and you can see that it kind of picks it up here because every time you do something in the folder itself, it will sort of track and register. So in the beginning it's undefined, and then I made a note called untitled, and then I made a note to scene two. So you kind of should ignore this. Maybe ignore this and then ignore this. But now it will ignore it all. And then you can add scene two and blah 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 blah, right? So now you have scene one and scene two in your projects, and you can compile them afterwards. The problem is that with this stuff is that you can't like fully show it. I think I'm working on something that uses the daily notes editor code to kind of have it all in one scene. Like you have one file, this is one file, and then this is another file. You can see it all in one row, which would be cool. It'll be like Scrivener like, but it's not out yet. So for the time being, I suggest we call this chapters instead of scenes, so it's easier to work with. The thing about this thing about this about us doing all this in the UI is that you can see it here as well, right? You can see if we looked in this long form thing, right? You would see all our settings in this long form saying what scenes we included, what we ignored. So if you had an undefined in here, right, a note that was undefined or untitled, it would ignore it because that's what we set in this long form data. But since it's hard to access it anymore because of new Obsidian MD API, What you don't have to, you can probably ignore it. You can do it the UI way. I usually, I've the old way to do it was to just go in here and just do it yourself.